I just think it's important to remember that your faith it's a journey and it's an evolution.
Yeah.
Right. So I think people sometimes get really down on themselves if they feel like their faith is going up and down.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, dude, that's just life. Just like it'll level out, it'll rise again.
Why'd you go atheist? It's a lot easier to believe that there is not a God rather than to believe he hates you.
I was struck by lightning.
Life and existence is this incredible mystery.
I want to be able to show people that like the gospel is cool and like God is cool.
That's the point of life, is the I don't know, but I believe.
When did you get all tatted up?
I got tatted up over the summer.
Oh, really?
Over like the course of the last year.
What does that say?
This one, it says the good news.
Uh-huh.
So it's like a little newsy kid, or like
Yeah.
you can think of it as like a missionary almost.
Yeah.
He's delivering the good news, or like the gospel.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah.
Dude, I love it.
Yeah.
That's dope.
I've been like slowly accumulating these over the last year. I've been coming up with tattoos ideas since like middle school.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
I've always wanted to do them, and then I finally got the chance to do it, and I was like, I'm taking this chance, and I'm gonna fully just go right into it. Except now that I'm kind of like, I'm in this phase right now. I'm trying to like figure out what I want to do with like the church and like where I sit exactly with the church, and I don't really know how I feel about like getting more.
Sure.
But in a way, they kind of serve a purpose now, where it's like Jesus Christ, how he has like his scars, you know?
Sure.
They show like his past and like what he's been through.
Yeah.
And to me, it's kind of what it shows in a way.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know if I'm done yet or not. It's a hard decision to make.
I think you just gotta. I think whether you are gonna, whatever your next step is, I think you just do it really thoughtfully and prayerfully.
Yeah.
And don't just say like, wake up, be like, yo, I need a tat today.
Yeah.
You know?
No, yeah.
But what do I know?
No, I think that's honestly true.
Yeah.
And it's what I've been trying to do.
Yeah.
I've been trying to be very prayerful about it. And I mean, over the last year, I did lots of different partying, and I explored in a lot of different ways all over the place.
Yeah.
And so now that I'm kind of like coming back, I'm like trying to give like the church almost like a second chance in a way, like with my new perspectives and my new ways of thinking.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I kind of stepped away, and I like had lots of doubts, and I like really, really explored those doubts in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I felt like I wasn't giving like the church a fair shot anymore. And so I felt like I had to kind of take a step back, look at the church for everything that it is with my new perspectives and new beliefs. I got back to the temple like 2 months ago, basically. And I've been trying to like really use that opportunity to like explore more deeper into the church with like a worthiness background too. Because I feel like a lot of the times people will explore the church or say that they're exploring the church, but like they're not doing, like their intentions behind things aren't great.
Yeah.
And so like I'm trying to like do my best to like make sure that my intentions are straight. I'm like worthy. I'm clean from like everything.
Right.
And then I can receive answers as I like continue.
Right. You can approach it more clear-headed and
Right.
Yeah. Totally, dude.
Yeah. So that's my goal with where I'm headed, I guess.
Yeah. Nice. Well, I mean, I just think it's important to remember that your faith it's a journey and it's an evolution.
Yeah.
Right. So I think people sometimes get really down on themselves if they feel like their faith is going up and down.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, dude, that's just life. Just like it'll level out, it'll rise again. I don't think you need to worry about it too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have lots of different ideas towards, I mean, everyone has their questions, right? And so the way I tried to approach them, I tried to be very, very cautious and careful. It was something that like my mission president really instilled in me. He really made sure that you didn't go into it with like so much thinking of it as a doubt and more so as like a question.
Yeah.
Because when it's like a doubt versus a question, it's like, have you read 7 Habits of Effective People,
Yeah,
Stephen
yeah.
Covey?
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about being understood or seeking to understand before you seek to be understood.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of it's a similar principle. Whereas like when I'm diving into the scriptures, I'm not looking for proof to what I think is wrong or to what whatever my question is. Like I'm looking and being willing to like be wrong.
Right.
Because if I am wrong, then like that's something I need to accept.
Yeah.
And I need to be like humble about
Yeah.
it and like strip away my pride and be able to just like step into that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, it's a kind of a tricky area a lot of times. And a lot of people have their own ways of thinking towards it. So it's difficult and people will think differently about it and family will see it very differently.
Sure.
And so it's very, I don't know. It's interesting. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's very fun. I mean, so you're 37.
36, yeah.
36, sorry.
Cut that out.
So you've had lots of, I don't want to say like life experience, but I mean, you've seen probably a lot more than what I've seen. What generation are you part of?
I'm still a millennial.
Millennial,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So I know the millennials kind of saw like a different view on like the whole technology like phase of like that's happened over the last 10, 15 years. For me, I grew up in it.
Right.
It's all I know.
Yeah,
There was like 5 years at the beginning of my life where it like didn't really exist.
Right.
But I barely remember that.
Yeah, you didn't have an iPad as a baby.
Right. But like you guys like saw like everything. And so like growing up and seeing like that shift in the world kind of just like slowly take place and happen. What was like your views and like towards the world and like what were you thinking? What was going through your mind as everything was happening and how were you like trying to be like cautious of everything, but also like looking at like our generation or like younger generations, like what impact do you feel like it made and has made on our generation?
That's a good question. So it's funny, like growing up, like technology as far as like social media and stuff just was non-existent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I didn't even touch social media until like my senior year of high school.
Oh, right.
Right. But then it was like MySpace. You ever heard of MySpace?
Like, yeah, I've heard of it, but I don't really know much about it.
It was like the precursor to Facebook.
Oh, really?
But it was dope because you could like customize your page.
Oh, really?
And like it was a lot of music. So if you went to someone's page, like you could pick the song that came on when they came there.
Really?
Like it was cool, but whatever. And then I get back from my mission and Facebook is kind of taken over.
Yeah.
But still Instagram wasn't really around till I think 2012 or 14 or something.
Yeah, probably.
And so the interesting thing is growing up, it really just wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
You know, there was little, advances in technology, of course, with computers and music and video and everything, but it was fairly gradual.
Right.
But then, I want to say maybe kind of the 2010s, 2015-ish, things started to really, go crazy. And what I've noticed with younger generations is they're so dialed into what's current.
Okay.
Because of TikTok and Instagram. And whereas us growing up, like you kind of just know what's going on because of the people in your high school.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like as far as like trends.
You mean worldwide versus like...
Yeah. I mean, worldwide you hear about news and stuff.
Right.
But I mean like fashion, trends, slang, all that stuff.
Right.
Like there was no like meme culture. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like people are always just like quoting things like from TikToks.
Right.
Right. or these famous memes. And it's like growing up, that just didn't happen. Like, you quote shows or movies.
Yeah.
But so it's interesting how like, and me and my buddies my age will joke around about how like people now in high school, they're like, their fashion's dialed, their hair's dialed, they're all in better shape. Whereas like when we were in high school, like our clothes were tragic, they're horrible, like because we didn't have social media to be like, yo, look at like that's kind that's kind of
Right.
tight right now.
Right.
But
There's no one influencing.
yeah,
what
yeah,
you were
there was
doing.
no influencers.
Yeah, right.
You know,
Okay.
you're like looking at People Magazine or,
Yeah,
or something
right,
like that.
right.
And so, you know, you see a music video and you're like, oh, Justin Bieber's got some cool pants, you know, but now like, and here's the thing, unlike a lot of people my age,
Yeah.
a lot of people my age hate it, right? They think it's bad. They think whatever. I think it's cool because the trends, everything shifts so fast. I think it's cool because now like you can kind of make anything you want cool,
Right.
you know,
Right.
you can find your niche,
Okay.
you know, you can find like, if you just like
You're like your uniqueness. And
yeah,
whatever it is.
and there's not like in style, out of style.
right.
There's everything in between.
Right.
And so if you're like, dude, I don't like, for instance, like it's more in style now to kind of wear like baggier pants and like big tees and stuff. But if you don't like that, like you can still wear kind of more form fitting stuff, and there's millions of people that do.
Right.
And so you're not an outcast.
Right.
Right? Back in the day, like in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s, especially further back you go, it was either in style or out of style,
Okay.
you know? So I think it's cool now, like
I think that's
you can kind of rock anything,
it's true.
you know?
I haven't really thought about it like that. But that's definitely true. That has changed a lot. A lot of people will kind of just wear whatever they want. And in a lot of ways, like as much as like, yeah, social media is tragic because of how much information we have, like it has caused lots of like mental health in some ways. It also has really brought out a lot of genuine sides of people and a lot more authentic sides of people because they feel like they've seen everything. We've experienced everything in a way through others' eyes. And so like because of it, we don't really care as much. And so we'll just express however we feel.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing. But what do you think is like the difference between like all this information that we have versus like, I don't know, I feel like you go back in time like 100 years, like wisdom was so important. But you look at people who were like the smartest in the world, like Einstein, you know, like they always struggled the most with mental health because they knew so much about the world. To them, it was almost like it was scary. It made the world scary because they knew so much. And now we have so much information. You kind of see that mental health kind of being passed through everybody in a way.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's kind of maybe like, I don't know, like when I think about like all this information that we're getting, I think of how like Satan is really trying to like put a twist on everything in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like maybe he sees it as an opportunity to like jump in with all this information and throw so much information at us that like we no longer know what's true, what's not true, because there's just so much going on.
Yeah.
So like, how do we like make sure that we're like getting like good information versus like bad information and like what's like wisdom and like what's not?
Yeah.
Like philosophies of man versus like scripture and like
Yeah.
doctrine.
Yeah. I mean, that's like 6 questions, but I'll try to answer. No, you're good. I think a really important thing now with such an overabundance of information is when you take something in, like look to like go deep into something instead of just reading a bunch of headlines and a bunch of like just little bite-sized pieces of information. Like go read a whole article, go read a 10-page article.
Don't just Google it and get the first.
Yeah. Don't just be like, yeah, I saw this TikTok on what's going on in Palestine. It's pretty crazy. Now I have deep opinions on it.
Right.
It's like, dude, you watched a 2-minute video.
Right.
You know, like hop on Wikipedia, read the history of Palestine, read the history and the context. And, you know, like that's the cool thing about having so much information is you can go crazy deep.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And so to me, the way to like kind of separate the wheat from the chaff is to read more. I think reading is really underrated and really important. And like you said earlier, I really like this. I try to have the mindset that I'm always open to being wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of putting the ego aside.
Right.
And so even though I take in information, I read stuff, I try to stay open to, okay, I think this is right. I think this is correct. I believe it's right and correct, but I'm open to being proven wrong.
Right.
I don't think I will be, but I'm open to it.
Yeah.
You know? And I think there's some wisdom in that, in not having the arrogance of assuming because I read something or because somebody told me something, now I know for sure. Right. Even with my belief system, my faith, I am comfortable saying I know this, this, and this, but if something shows me otherwise, I'm open to it. But I've lived this long and it hasn't been disproven.
Right.
You know? And, you know, maybe I'll get to the other side after life and I'll try to stay open-minded, right? But I don't worry about, you know how some people get really caught up in like, well, how do you know you know?
Yeah.
You know? I'm like, I don't, but I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not overly concerned about, do I really know that I know?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I think I know.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I feel like in the church that happens a lot where they tell you to say, like, I remember, at least for me, growing up, I had my leaders when they were like teaching us how to like testify, you know, they're like, don't say like, I believe. My teacher was like, say like, I know.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, like that's so strong.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I know.
Yeah, yeah.
But in a way, it's kind of like, it's like kind of wrong. Like, do we know?
Yeah, that's the thing. Now you're just dipping into like philosophy. And to me, it's like, do we want to teach our kids philosophy when they're 5?
Yeah.
So I can see both ways, right?
Yeah.
When I have kids, I want to just have such an open dialogue with them that I'm like, hey, in my prayers, I like to say, or my testimony, I like to say like, I know that Jesus lives, because for me, I feel like I know.
Right.
You know?
Right.
If you're maybe a little unsure,
Yeah.
say like, I believe, or like, here's some other words you can use.
Right.
You know?
Give them a little bit of context behind it.
Yeah.
Do you think it's fair to be able to say like, I know?
Like I said, I don't care if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I don't care if semantically I'm out of line. To me, I feel like I know something, I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
Whether I'm right or wrong.
Right.
Like, here's an example. I don't really know that much about like science or anything, right? But I know that every morning the sun comes up, right? How do I know that I know? I don't know. I see it every morning. Have I done deep research to find out why the sun comes up every morning? No. What happens if one morning it doesn't come up? I'll be like, that was crazy. I thought it always came up. I bet it'll come up tomorrow, though. That's how I feel about God. Like, I know that God exists.
Yeah.
If somehow, some way in the future, a discovery doesn't, okay. But I'm gonna move forward in faith, assuming that I know.
Yeah. I like that. It's kind of missing the mark, trying to look for it in a way.
Yeah.
Like it's not nearly as important in a way. Like you just want to focus on the fact that every single day, like there's something, and like you can focus on that one thing. It's like when like Peter walked out on the water with like Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Like he was like telling him, like just like focus on me. There's so much going on in the world. And I feel like that happens a lot today.
Yeah.
There's so much chaos and information out there going on that everyone's like freaking out and in their head so much. And Jesus Christ just says like, just relax.
Yeah.
Just like focus on me. And like in that very second when he like focuses back on him, he's able to step out of that water again and join Jesus Christ again.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of the point that we kind of miss a lot of the time, is that there is lots of information and we could be right or wrong. And maybe that's part of the whole Satan thing. Like he just wants to confuse us in whatever way we can, when reality is it's very simple.
Yeah. And dude, like, you know, you'll talk to people that don't believe, or for whatever reason don't want you to believe.
Yeah.
Right. And they'll try to, you know, they'll talk about like, how do you know, and how could you possibly know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, dude, I have one word for you. It's faith.
Yeah.
You know, like if I fully knew, if I had a perfect knowledge, I would require no faith.
Yeah.
You know, so all of us, you could make the argument that everyone here on earth, including the prophet, the brethren, the best members of the church you've ever met, the most faithful people,
Yeah.
they don't know with a perfect knowledge anything,
Right.
right? But they know well enough,
Yeah.
you know, and they're exercising their faith. So I don't like to get too caught up on the wording of it all, you know?
Yeah. No, that's honestly very fair. Yeah. Leaders of the church can be a hard topic to jump into too.
Sure.
Just because of that same exact thing, like you just mentioned. But I kind of want to backtrack a little bit now. I mean, we've already kind of just like jumped into something,
Yeah.
and went down a little.
Let's do the intro.
I might as well introduce you now. And let everyone know who you are.
Let's do it.
So this is Taylor Church. I had him come on. We're Oblivious. I think you reached out to me because of the video maybe that you saw with me and Tao Tai.
Yeah.
And then I was looking at your stuff and everything, and it really resonated with me. It seemed like we're kind of getting at a lot of the same things, lots of kind of different philosophies and like religion and God. And so I feel like we're able to kind of really have like a very honest and deep conversation, and maybe kind of jump into some like questions that like people might have, or like, I don't know, that I even have, that we can just kind of like dive into a little bit. But I kind of want to go into a little bit of your background a little bit more.
Okay.
And kind of go into like your journey and your path with God as to why you have the belief system that you do have. Because it seems to me like you kind of like, you've seen a lot, you've been through a lot, and like you have like a way of thinking that is very, very firm.
Yeah.
And I really admire that. And so I want to kind of like jump into why you're so firm in what you believe.
Yeah.
So like, what was your first experience like with God? I know you said you grew up just south of Provo, right?
Yeah, I moved around a little bit before that. So I grew up in Seattle, Vegas, and Phoenix.
Oh, did you?
And then moved to Utah when I was 14.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so what was that like moving around and then coming to Utah? Why did you come to Utah?
So my mom's from here. So
Okay.
we moved around for a bunch of reasons. And then, we just decided to kind of come back by my mom's family.
Okay.
So, moving to Utah was wild. It's just so different than everywhere else.
Yeah.
Right? And
Were you guys LDS before?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And everywhere else you're an extreme minority, you know? And so, and then you move to a place and it's just kind of common. It's most everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes a little bit to get used to. It's like, it was weird having like everyone at school be your same religion.
Yeah. Yeah. What was that like? Like, I feel like, for me, when I like went on my mission and I went out and experienced other people who were the minority in their faiths, I noticed that they were, really having to fight for their faith a lot more. Did you feel like when you got here, like it was a little bit easier to fight for your faith?
It's hard because I was a kid,
Yeah.
you know, before I moved to Utah. I was, 0 to 13 years old.
Maybe didn't care too much.
And you just don't think that deeply, I think.
Right.
You're like, this is what I'm doing on Sunday. This is what I believe.
Right.
Now, like, I'm going to recess.
Right.
You know? But I think when I moved here, I realized that faith, church activity, investment in the gospel, it's all a spectrum, right? Whereas before I was just kind of like, this is what Mormons are like.
Right.
The people that I see on Sunday.
Yes.
And at school and in my town, I was like, well, basically everyone is either Mormon or used to be Mormon or is kind of Mormon or whatever. Yeah. And so I realized it's a spectrum.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an important lesson to learn, that everyone doesn't need to be on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is honestly a very fair point. Everyone's life journey in spirituality and everything are going to look very different and be very different. And that is something that I struggle with personally, like quite a bit. I personally moved here when I was like 2, and then I've been in Utah County my whole life.
Yeah.
And so it's like all I've really known. And so for me, I find myself putting people in boxes a lot and like really just like saying everyone's kind of the same, when in reality people are all very, very, very different in their faiths, and you will find people of different parts in different parts of their journey with God all over the world, no matter where they are. It's just here it's more magnified, so it's easy. It's easy for me to kind of just put a a blank face as to
Yeah.
what it all is, when in
Right.
reality it's not really.
Yeah, because even if you want to take everyone that is super active and is at church every week,
Yeah.
if you dissected and went deep into each of their testimonies, you would see it's a wide spectrum as well.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a little reckless to assume that everyone is kind of one way or another,
Yeah.
you know?
How would you say, like, if you were trying to help people strengthen their testimony more, how would you try to, like, because I know Jesus Christ, like, ministers to the one.
Mm-hmm.
How would you kind of, like, try to minister to the masses if you could? Or do you feel like that's just kind of missing the point of, like, what Jesus Christ did, just ministering to the one?
I think you do both, right? Because Jesus ministered to the one, right?
Right.
But he also ministered to the masses,
Yeah.
you know? But
Right.
also, I'm not Jesus.
Yeah.
You
You got
know?
the long hair, though.
You know, I'll tell you what, it's easier to look like him than to act like him. But I think, let's see. Here's my goal in trying to spread what I believe
Yeah.
and to strengthen other people's beliefs.
Yeah.
I want to be the person that when people meet or get to know, they feel like I can go talk to Taylor about anything. I can, if I'm having doubts, if I got beef, if I'm discouraged, if I'm lonely, if I'm hopeless, he's somebody that'll listen to me. And to me, that's how I can minister to the one. But that's also how, like, to me, that's how I can help people the best, right? And maybe they get that feeling by listening to my podcast or by, you know, seeing a reel on Instagram or whatever.
Yeah.
They feel slightly less alone for a minute.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I that resonates with me because I feel like I'm kind of going down a similar path where I find it difficult as I'm trying to kind of spread this message further and talk more about the gospel and about God in a more open light, where I run into scenarios where I feel like I'm just like, I can't always be very specific in the things that I say, but I can openly talk about the way that I feel. And by the way, and by being open and authentic, I feel like it allows other people to do so too.
Yeah.
So like with you, like with your podcast and everything that you're doing, do you feel like that's something that you've seen a lot then? People have been able to turn to you because of it?
I think people sometimes, like, yeah, they see how open and vulnerable I am on social media and my podcast. And so they're like, it kind of takes some walls down.
Yeah.
And in a weird way, it's like sometimes I'll meet people and they've already like listened to 4 hours of me talking. and so it's a weird, almost like they come in feeling like they kind of know me a little bit.
Like they've already been talking with you.
Yeah. And so I think their walls are down a little bit, and I love that. Like I love for anyone to feel like they can come talk to me about anything at any time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. So what is your end goal then with your podcast?
I don't have an end goal. Like it's just something I'm passionate about, and it's a piece of creative work that I want to just continue to do until I get dementia and people are like, bro, your episodes aren't making any sense. I'm like, well, now they're funny. But, you know, I just, cause I'm a writer, so I write books, and
Yeah, I saw that in your profile, but I was going to ask you about that.
yeah. So I write fiction and nonfiction. They're pretty different project to project, but the only reason I brought that up is I just want to continually put out art, put out content, and hope that it resonates with people. And that's my goal, right?
Yeah.
I don't have like if I've done this for this long or this many episodes and I make this much money, that's my end goal.
Yeah.
My goal is to just put out creative work and hope that someone hears it, someone feels less alone, someone feels more understood, someone feels happy, someone laughs.
Yeah.
And that's even though, I don't have a huge audience or anything yet, but anytime somebody messages me and says, hey man, that episode was awesome, it helped me with this, this, and this, I'm like, okay, then it's all worth it.
Yeah.
All the crap all the beginning episodes where my phone died in the middle of filming, like all the disasters, all the hard work, if it affects one person, it's worth it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I've noticed a similar thing with like what I've been putting out too.
Mm-hmm.
It does make it a lot. It does make it worth it.
Yeah.
And it's very fun to do, honestly. It makes it really enjoyable. Feels like, you get to be a part of what God is really telling us to do in these days, to gather, to help people in these last days.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, it's like when I'm putting out a lot of creative work, I'm my happiest.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I can do this full time, like that's an amazing way to live in my opinion.
Are you at that point yet?
Not quite. I still have to supplement with other sources of income. It's hard to monetize art, but I think if you're truly passionate about it, it's worth it.
Do you want to give your podcast a little shout out real quick?
Sure. It's called Of Stone and Clay. And it's basically just about what it means to be human. It's me digging into people's souls. It's me trying to figure out what in the world we're trying to do on this little earth.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. It's very fun, honestly. Definitely go give it a look. It's honestly really interesting. I liked it a lot. I want to ask about where you first started being curious in God.
Mm-hmm.
I know everyone kind of has that moment of conversion, I guess.
Yeah.
Like on our missions, we taught and we talk about converts a lot, but everybody really is a convert in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
For me, my conversion happened on my mission.
Yeah.
What was like that moment for you? When was that, and how did that happen?
Oh, dude, this is a hard question for me because I never felt like I wasn't converted yet.
Yeah.
I felt like, how people have different gifts of the Spirit?
Yeah.
I always felt like one of my gifts was just faith.
Yeah.
I felt like from being a small child, what I was taught felt right in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you're that young, you don't really dig too deep into it, right? I just was like, yeah, this feels good. I like when I go to church. I like when I'm reading these books. And it wasn't always like my dad left the church when I was like 12 or 13.
Oh, really?
Right? And so I had the green light to not go.
Yeah.
But it never crossed my mind.
Right.
And it wasn't because like I thought my dad was evil or anything and me and my dad are as close as can be. But and my dad's a wonderful, wonderful human.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had every reason to step aside if I wanted to.
Right.
Right.
The opportunity was there.
But I guess what's the simplest way to say it is the gospel always brought me joy.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, I don't know how well I could have articulated it, but as I've gotten older, we'll say a deeper conversion that I've had is realizing how desperately I need God, right? It's not just a luxury to have God, it's a necessity.
Okay.
And
I like that.
I think you learn that through the crucibles of life, through going through stuff.
Right.
And you realize if I'm doing this all by myself, this is a whole lot harder.
Right.
And the hell I'm in is a whole lot deeper. And so yeah, when you realize how deeply you need a savior, I think you get more converted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So more so kind of over time, and as time went on, everything, you just started to need him more and more and more. And
yeah,
more.
it just got deeper, and there was never a single moment that I could pick out that was like, oh, this is when everything changed. But yeah, and listen, God was always beside me.
Yeah.
It took me a while to maybe realize that even when I was being a knucklehead,
Yeah.
he didn't turn around and go away and wait till I was good again.
Right.
He was always right there. It was me that turned around,
Right.
Yeah. And it took me a while to figure that out.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think that action happens a lot more often than we think it does too.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I noticed I was doing a lot in my past where like I feel like true humility, I was being humble by like punishing myself when I felt like I was doing something that was wrong or I wasn't doing everything I was supposed to be that God was telling me to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would punish myself by turning away from him and like going into the corner and like putting myself in timeout in a way.
Yeah.
When in reality, like he's sitting over here with open arms and he's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like I'm right here to help you out. Like all you have to do is just turn around and I'm right here.
Yeah.
And like you put yourself in that dark corner, just like with your hands up by your head and you're just like, but I realized I was doing that a lot more recently, and I've been focusing a lot more on that. I've been trying to at every single moment where something, any temptation or anything happens, I try to turn straight to him instead.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the real humility that happens.
Yeah. And like to me, the easiest way to either be depressed or stay depressed is to self-isolate.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, like you said, that's kind of your tendency maybe when you've sinned or you've done something you're not proud of.
Right.
You're like, I'm going to go in the corner where I deserve and put my head down and no snacks for me, But even if you don't believe in God, like I think instead of self-isolating, maybe you don't reach out, maybe you don't turn to God, but you turn to your friends.
Right.
You turn to your family.
Right.
And you realize that they're waiting there with open arms,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think self-isolating is just never really the answer, even though that's kind of our default, right?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That natural man in us kind of just wants to, I don't know, punish ourselves. Maybe.
Yeah, and we want to pity ourselves.
Yeah.
And we want to kind of just sulk a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. You're talking about faith before and how you kind of feel like you're blessed with this gift of faith.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you've seen a difference in your life by just always believing? Do you, like, for myself, I question a lot and I find it fun to question sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself questioning often?
Here's the thing. I question things and I think about things a lot. But I can't remember who said this, but I think it's important to also like doubt your doubts.
Yeah. Right.
And so, yeah, I think it's healthy to always be considering and thinking and pondering and saying like, yeah, is this right? Is this really the way it is? But I don't just go digging for garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is your take on blind faith? How do you make sure that you stay away from blind faith?
I don't know. I just think with all the experiences I've had thus far in my life, it's just not blind anymore, right? I think that's maybe a question for when you're younger and you're not really sure what you believe. Maybe it's easier to just follow your family or your friends or whatever, and maybe that's a little bit blind.
Yeah.
But I think eventually you get to a point where you come face to face with your testimony, and you have to decide. Yeah.
Yeah. What was your experiences like on your mission for you? I mean, you grew up in the church. Your parents are divorced.
No, they're still together.
They're still together.
Yeah.
So when you went on your mission, was there any big change that happened for you, or anything that you really felt like really stood out to you in your faith?
There's a couple things. I think I realized my mission was the first time that I was praying just so constantly.
Yeah.
And there were some really hard times where I was like, dude, I've been praying nonstop that like this family will get baptized and it just doesn't work out. And then I meet this new family, pray, and then it doesn't work out. And so I had to realize that like having faith doesn't mean you get what you ask for every time.
Right.
It doesn't mean that there are no hardships. It doesn't mean that sometimes God's timing isn't yours. Like, I think before my mission, all my prayers were pretty just, like, bless my family, that, we can stay healthy. And everything was pretty good.
Yeah.
Everything was pretty chill.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I had an amazing mission, but you're constantly thinking about people and praying for people. And I think I learned a lot more about just like free agency.
Right.
Like you can do everything in your power, but people still have their free agency.
Absolutely.
Even with like, there's been girls that I've wanted to marry so bad and have prayed for it, but they have their free agency. And maybe it was even right for both of us and it would have worked out and God would have loved it.
Yeah.
But she still has her free agency.
Right.
She can tell me to get lost, And then another big lesson I had was just, this is going to sound maybe cliche, but just I learned a lot about patience and love. Like I had some difficult companions.
Yeah.
I had a companion that didn't talk to me for 3 days.
Really?
Yeah.
No way.
For 3 whole days, and it was just me and him in the house.
What happened?
One day it was raining, and we're in Brazil, so it rains all the time. So you can't stop work.
Yeah.
Right? But it's raining, and he's like, dives for cover under this, some awning, and he's like, Whew. I was like, sorry, bro. Like, we got an appointment. Like, we got to go.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not going out in this rain. This rain's crazy, bro. And I'm like, okay, well, you can follow me or not. Like, we're going to this appointment,
No way.
And I mean, I maybe could have handled it a little softer, but like, I was like, and it wasn't even raining that hard. That's the thing. It wasn't torrential downpour. It's just kind of raining.
Right.
And so we get into the house. I'm talking to people, whatever. We do our little spiel, and I kind of look over at him. It's kind of his part, his turn, and he just goes like this to me. He goes,
No way. No way.
and I'm like, really, bro? But I'm like, I'm not going to say anything now, like in front of these people. So I do the whole lesson by myself.
No
right?
way.
And then we leave the house, and I'm like, bro, you're killing me. Like, you're still mad about the freaking rain? Like, let's get back on. Like, and then he didn't like. At that point, he was like muttering some stuff to me. He was a native Brazilian, and he was like, you arrogant American, and blah 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 blah. And I was like, whatever, bro, get it out of your system. We're cool. And then, and the thing is, I'm not a very contentious person, right? So I'm just like, all right, bro, you be mad. Let me know when you're good. Like, I got no problems. And then we go back to the place. I ask him something. He's just,
no shot.
So I'm like, okay. So next morning, I'm like, surely this isn't,
Yeah, right.
Sure enough, dude.
No
I'm asking him, what was your personal study about? Whatever. Here's where we got to go today. And he just goes,
no shot.
So I'm just like, I told him, I'm like, bro, if you want to be this stubborn, that's fine, but we're not going to stop working. Like, we got people to teach, we got people to baptize.
Yeah.
So you can just sulk and just follow behind me, whatever you want to do.
No way.
So for 3 days, I taught lessons all by myself.
He didn't help at all in the lessons
say a
either?
word.
No way. So what ended it? Did you have to say something?
Bro, this is what was cool. So that last night, I get on my knees and I'm just praying, and I'm just like, God, this can't continue.
Yeah.
This is bad stuff. But I was pissed at this point. Right. I'm just like, what is this guy's problem? And, and I'm 19, so I'm a little less rational probably.
Right.
But I'm just like, I'm on my knees and I'm angry. Yes. And I really can't get a lot of words out. I'm just on my knees angry. But I'm like, I'm not going to give up this prayer. I'm going to stay here until I feel better, until, I don't know, something comes to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I stay there for probably like 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It was bad. And then I'm still on my knees. He comes over and taps my shoulder. He's got tears in his eyes. And he just gives me a hug. And he's like, I'm sorry, bro.
No way.
And I didn't need anything else. I didn't need an explanation. I didn't need like, well, bro, what's been your problem the last 3 days?
Right.
You know, why is this such a big deal? I was just like, all right. And we hugged it out and we were good.
Yeah.
And then, and dude, before that, we had issues before that. One day he told me he really wanted to punch me in the face. And I said, bro, please do. I said, I'll tell you what'll happen. I'll call the mission president and I'll get a new companion.
Yeah.
So please punch me.
No
Yeah.
way.
And he didn't, you know. But we had some beef.
Yeah.
And then I get transferred, and he cries like a baby.
Really?
And then I was older than him, and then when I went home, I was in the office the last day, and he called the office and wanted to talk to me, wanted to say goodbye, and he was like, bro, you're the best companion I ever had.
No way. No way.
Yeah.
So after that beef was just settled and you guys just like clicked.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, like, I was pissed at the situation,
Yeah.
but I never had crazy beef with him.
Right.
He's just a difficult person,
Yeah.
you know? But the lesson I learned was, like, when somebody comes to you in sackcloth and ashes,
Yeah.
like, you let them come. You
Right.
don't, you know, it would have been easy for me to be like, bro, like, I appreciate you apologizing, but what is your deal?
Right.
You know?
Right.
But it's just not, you know, there's no point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think there's a lot to dive in, even in that whole story. But just like for me, it just shows like the unconditional love that it just doesn't really matter at the end. Like there's a lot of people who are gonna have their opinions and different thoughts of things, and I had my companions too, who were difficult and hard to deal with. But like at the end, the work is the work.
Yeah.
And we've all got our demons, our things that we're all fighting through on our own. And we don't always need to let it out in a way that is going to reflect on someone else. Like it's honestly, for me, it's like when people act out in a certain way, they're really trying to tell you something.
Yeah.
There's something that's on their mind, and it is something that they're facing on the inside that they're trying to figure out, but they can't figure out. Like someone who is like making fun of people, or like is always like, it's like telling people that they look bad or something like that. You know, like most of the time those people are struggling themselves on the inside with that exact same thing.
Yeah.
And so it's sometimes it's a very easy puzzle to figure out if you really think about it. Like people will reflect off what they're struggling with on the inside. And sometimes it can be hard to approach because it's a difficult situation to call someone out for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just everyone's always going through their own stuff on the inside. And so you got to be very patient with people and very calm and relaxed when people act out in a certain way.
Yeah.
Because they're just really trying to tell you something.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't matter that it's like, you could make the argument of like, okay, but they don't have the right to talk to me like that.
Right.
Or they're being so disrespectful.
Right.
Or it's so inappropriate. But it's like, that's your ego talking, bro.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I saw this interesting video. You know who Gary Vee is?
Yeah.
So Gary Vee, he was meeting with, you know, he's a social media guru, whatever. Some of his stuff's kind of whack, but some of his stuff I like.
Yeah.
Right. But he was meeting with these like young teenage like influence girls, and they were like, "What do you do? Like, how do you deal with like really hateful like comments and like trollers and stuff?" And he's like, I realized a long time ago that most of those people are in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And so my response is only compassion.
Yeah.
I feel bad for those people, and I respond with love.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's such a cool point. Like, but you know, when you're going through stuff and you check your comments and someone's like, he looks ugly, or like, that guy's an idiot, or
Yeah.
wow, he's still not married. Like
Yeah.
whatever it is,
Right.
it's hard to not take personally. But
Uh-huh.
you're like, okay, obviously for somebody to be so like blatantly mean,
Yeah.
they're probably going through something.
Right.
You know?
Right. And I see comments like that come through a lot sometimes on different things. And like my initial thought every time is like, oh, I gotta respond or say something. And then every time I like double tap the screen, delete. That's my ego talking.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I just gotta just let them talk.
Yeah,
Let them say their piece.
It's funny. So I haven't really had any. You know, here's the thing. I'm not big enough really to get any hate right now.
Right.
But I've been on a couple like LDS podcasts that have pretty big following, and so I've had some. There's been some people in the comments that are saying stuff.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I'll heart their comment, and then I'll respond with I'll try to. Because I know they're going in the comments looking for a fight,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But they're not getting a fight with me.
Yeah.
They're gonna get love, and they're gonna get like. I literally responded to a comment like right before I walked in here.
Really?
This dude was like, you know, this, and it wasn't personal, but it was just about the video, about the content.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, man, I could totally see that side. I think for me, it's like this, and this. Anyways, like, really appreciate you, brother.
Yeah.
Like, and he's probably like, that comment probably pissed him off.
Yeah.
But like, you just can't. It doesn't help to be combative.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I definitely think that's true. I think of how Jesus Christ deals with everything in a very similar way. He just has so much compassion towards like everybody in their place and then their spot and wherever they are. And it goes back again to like always ministering to the one.
Mm-hmm.
I find that part being a big part of it. Like at the end, like everybody are such like crybabies, and we're just like children, just like bickering and fighting in like adult bodies, you know?
Right.
And so like, if you can just like go to those people and help them like not open their eyes by like trying to tell them that they're wrong, but just like show them that they're seen and that they're loved and that you care about them.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of the times walls drop.
Yeah.
And you see the same thing with Jesus Christ, when he was finding all of his disciples, when he was walking down the streets talking to people, and Pharisees and other people were calling him out and saying all these things. He had nothing to say but like love towards them. And you think of like Mary Magdalene, you know, she was in a very deep, dark place, and then he came in and was just called her by name and just told her that he like sees her. Like I understand you and I see you. And that meant everything to her.
Yeah.
She just wanted to be seen. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the time, that's all people really want. People just want to be seen and heard. And so just giving them that chance to be seen and heard, I think is just like, that part is like how you are ministering to the one every single time. Mm-hmm. And that's the part that I love the most about being able to do all of this is it gives you that opportunity to do that more often. Mm-hmm. And it breaks down those walls where people can see me being vulnerable. And by me being vulnerable, other people can be vulnerable.
Yeah, totally, dude.
Which is the best part of the gospel.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But what is like your take going into this world right now of which we live in? Seems like a lot of chaos and a lot of distractions everywhere and things happening in the world. How do you make sure that you stay focused and centered on what's important without forgetting the minor details of what we're supposed to be doing? Mm-hmm. Meaning, I need to be calm and composed in what I'm doing and just remember Jesus Christ is what's important, the focus. But like, what is the action that we're supposed to be taking in these last days as well? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Kind of. That's a hard question. I love these questions, by the way. I think, first of all, I don't know how well I do it. You know, like I try, but I think it is a constant struggle to stay focused and to realize what's important and to stay centered. Mm-hmm. There's this show I really like where this guy, he's trying to win back this girl, and he was saying to her, he's like, I don't know where I've been, but I let my center move, and I just liked, he was trying to explain to her, kind of trying to apologize why he's been such a knucklehead, right? And he's like, I just love that phrase, like, I let my center move, and I think it takes a lot of work. I think you have to be really vigilant about figuring out the things that keep you centered, right? And for some people it's different. Like, for me, like, if I'm not reading a lot, whether that's, that includes scriptures, but just in general, if I'm not reading a lot, I don't feel as centered, right? And part of that reason is because if I'm reading less, I'm probably consuming more social media, right? A lot of times I read, like, I'm just in bed, like, scrolling mindlessly. And I'm like, I need to stop and pick up a book. Right. And so for me, it's a good litmus test. Like, am I reading a lot? If not, I'm probably wasting time doing other stuff. Right. But not everyone's a big reader, so you have to figure out what works for you. Another is, like, how often am I working out? Right. Not that working out's like the most important thing in the world. Yeah. But to me, if I'm not taking care of my physical, sometimes my spiritual slips and my mental slips. Right. And so to me, it's all correlated. And so I think it's important to, there's some really basic answers, like, go to church and read your scriptures and pray every night. And, if it's to go to the temple or to do missionary work, there's all these really simple, basic answers. Yeah. But there's so many other things too. Right. I think, and it all can tie back to the spiritual. If you're a spiritual person, the physical stuff can also be spiritual. Right. Working out can be spiritual. Right. Staying in shape can be spiritual.
In like what ways?
I think if you're improving your body and trying to become your best self, is that not trying to, like, get closer to divinity? Okay. Be more godlike. Yeah. Right. And it's not from a place of vanity. Like, I want to have, like, godlike abs. Right. It's like, I know my body could look better. I know I could eat better. Yeah. And so I'm going to try and do that. And to me, that's godly. Okay. And it's same with, almost every area of my life. It's like my social life. Yeah. Like, to me, if I'm not spending time with my friends, if I'm not reaching out to my family, if I haven't called my mom in a while, right? These social things, these familial things, then to me, like, my spirituality starts to slip, because it's all connected. Like, to me, connection with these people is analogous to connection with God. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I think that I resonate a lot with that, because I think of myself, if I'm not physically fit, I feel like my mental side starts to slip a little bit more.
And you are physically fit. I gave you a hug and I was like, this dude's sturdy.
Hey, it's 75 hard. No,
yeah. I've been doing 75 soft, and it's not working.
I'll get you back on it. Man. But it's definitely, I see a lot of that aspect where my physical side, if it's not up to par, I start to feel less mentally clear. And if I'm not 100% on my spiritual side, I can't be 100% physical, because I'm not in the moment. Yeah. I can't be very in the moment. I'm just going through the phases every single day. Yeah. I'm going through the motions. And so I think that's honestly very, very true. And I really resonate with that. And I think about it a lot, but honestly, it's almost like every day I could just make like 4 check boxes. It's like, have I taken care of my mental health? Have I taken care of my spiritual health? Yeah. My physical health, my emotional and social health? And like making sure that I'm taking care of those things every day, because a lot of the times I feel myself going through, like, it feels like phases sometimes in life, where I feel like I'll go out with people and I feel like I can't talk to anyone for some reason, or I just feel a little bit mentally drained for some reason.
You're just in your head.
And maybe there's just a different way to look at it, but I think maybe taking care of those things and making sure those things are taken care of, I can take care of everything else properly.
Yeah, dude. So before I came to this podcast, I went to dinner with my buddy, right?
Yeah.
And he's like my best friend. He's my roommate. We spend tons of time together.
Yeah.
But I got to dinner and I was just like checking some notifications, maybe a little DM, a little something.
Yeah.
And but we're kind of talking too.
Yeah.
And then I realized, I was like, dude, yeah, I'm a little distracted by my phone, but I was like, I came into this dinner just like only thinking about myself and my problems and what I've got to do later tonight and what I want to do this weekend and what girls are texting me back and what girls aren't. And I was like, dude, just be present with your friend right now.
Yeah.
And so I just put my phone down and had an awesome dinner.
Yeah.
But sometimes you got to kind of check yourself.
Yeah.
Because you'll show up to places and you wonder why you're like, I just don't feel like talking to anyone, or I'm kind of in my head.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's because you're just thinking about yourself.
Yeah. No, that is so true.
Yeah.
Like, I was listening to another podcast recently where they were talking about a similar thing, and it almost sounds schizophrenic to do this, but it's like not like schizophrenic, but like crazy. But in every single moment, if you can almost just like imagine that is like your last moment with them. In a way, it makes you scarce about like never wanting to lose them. Yeah. And so you really, really want to be there in that moment. And so like if I can make sure like in every single situation that I'm in, like I strive to make sure that in every single interaction that I have with somebody, I leave the interaction with people feeling like they felt like they could come closer to Christ in some way, or that they felt understood, and that they feel like they learned something about Christ or something in some way. And I find that the best way to do that is by really just like being there and making them feel heard and seen. And being in the moment is one of the most important things, because you're so right. Everyone is in their own worlds. And when I was younger, my dad would always tell me, he's like, Reuben, you're living in your own world. Yeah. And it's like, it's so true. Like we have this like bubble or like around our heads sometimes where we just are thinking about all those different things that are going on all the time. When like, if we just like drop it all and kind of just have like that childlike mindset where I'm not thinking about like dinner on the table later tonight. I know eventually it's going to happen, and it's going to be there because it always is. I'm just going to live here and now, like where I'm at, and live in my feet. Yeah.
That's another thing I love about podcasting, right? Is I have to be fully present. Yeah. For this to be a remotely good episode. Right. And I can't even like, but if me and you are just homies and you're like, hey, let's go talk, let's just go kick it. Let's just talk. Yeah. It's hard for me to be this focused.
Just dialed in.
Because there's no consequence of, oh, hold on real quick, Right. Or like, I'm gonna go get a drink or whatever. Like there's a million little things. Right. But I love these moments because I can turn my phone off and I can just be like, I only have one purpose right now. Right. Is to talk to you. Right. And for you to talk to me. Right. And so it's a cool thing that you don't like, because sometimes like I'll interview my friends on my podcast and people are like, why don't you just like, is that weird? Like why don't you just talk to them like at your place? Yeah. Why do you have to do a podcast with them? And like, it's a unique.
It's a good excuse.
Yeah, it's a good excuse, but it's a unique format where we have no distractions. Yeah. Our only purpose is to talk.
Right. Right.
So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, and how can we implement that more in everyday life though too?
I think like you said, I just love the idea of thinking, okay, this, not to be like dramatic, but this might be the last time I ever spend with this person, right? And here's the thing, like, you probably have, if you look back at all the people in your life, you probably have a bunch of friends that it's not like you guys broke up or have beef, but you don't really talk to anymore, right? Old friends from high school, maybe some old roommates, old mission companions, whatever, right? The funny thing is, you probably don't remember, like you probably, the last time you saw them, you weren't thinking, this will be it, I'll probably never see you again.
Yeah.
But it just happens, right? And so I love that idea of thinking like, I'll probably, after this podcast, I'll probably see Reuben again. I like him. Maybe we'll podcast again. Maybe we'll become homies. Who knows? But I'm gonna dap him up, and I'm gonna act like this is an important moment.
Yeah.
And I don't need to be dramatic and be like, he might die. But I can recognize, this is a cool moment.
Yeah.
It's a gift. I might not get it again.
Yeah.
So let me kind of savor it.
Take it all.
But that's hard to do when you're with people you see all the time.
Right, like family and
Yeah.
other things.
Yeah.
Close.
But like I was listening to this guy who he was in like his 50s, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, yeah, so I live in LA. My parents live in New York.
Right.
And he's like, I see them probably 2 or 3 times a year.
Yeah.
We're going for Christmas, sometimes Thanksgiving, maybe a wedding or something.
Right.
And he's like, so I was like, yeah, I see my parents a decent amount, as much as anyone. And then he was like, but then I sat down and realized, okay, my parents are 70.
Yeah.
Let's say they live to 90, which is generous.
Right.
That's another 20 years, me seeing them an average of 2 times a year. That means I'm going to see my parents 40 more times, and that's it.
Yeah.
And when you put a number to it, that's it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And you realize, oh, maybe I need to savor these moments. Maybe I'll only have 20 more, or maybe 30 more.
Right.
And maybe I'll be lucky and it'll be 100 more.
Right.
But everything's limited.
Right. Right. No, I like that way of thinking towards it. I think I heard something like that recently too. It really made me sit. I think that night I heard it, I really sat with my parents for the first time in a while. I just really took it in. 'Cause I see my parents all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes I kind of just forget, and I jump into my old habits of just my teenage self of just hi, love you, bye.
Right.
But I really need to take in those moments a lot more, and even outside of that, make them feel seen and heard, but even make my other friends feel seen and heard, or even those who I might not even know look up to me in any way, or maybe just a stranger or something.
Mm-hmm.
But by giving them that moment to them, it can be very special and beneficial for them, and who knows, you might really save someone from something big.
Yeah.
You never really know what people are going through.
Yeah, and you never know what's going to kind of mean the world to somebody.
Yeah.
I remember I had 2 cousins growing up. I still have them, but they were 5 to 7 years older than me, and they were studs. They played baseball and football. One played professional baseball, the other played just college baseball. One of them had an offer to play football too. They were just studs.
Yeah.
And I remember, and we were pretty close, but they were just old enough that I was just kind of just a runt.
Right. Right.
I was just an annoying little cousin.
Right.
They were 16 and 17, and I'm 10.
Right.
But I looked up to them so much, and I remember one random Saturday, I don't know what compelled him to do it, but one of my cousins called me, called my house phone.
Oh, yeah. I remember those.
I'm 10, I don't have a cell phone,
Back in my day.
And he's like, hey, dude, I thought it'd be fun if we went to a movie.
Yeah.
And so we went to a movie, and then we went to Jamba Juice after.
Yeah.
And it was the best day of my life.
Yeah.
Because I was just dude, the fact that he wanted to hang out with me, it meant so much to me, and I still think about it sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's funny, a couple of years ago, I was chatting with his mom, my aunt, and I told her that story. She started tearing up. She's like, I never knew that happened. Mm-hmm. And I was like, really? I figured somebody told him to do it. Yeah. But yeah, you never know. You never know what's going to kind of make somebody's day.
Honestly, I think we should make that more normal, where people, if you feel like you're bored some night, and instead of just like I'm gonna kick it back, watch a movie, do something by myself, or like with like a few close friends that I always see, take a break from that. Go and look in your phone, or think about a cousin like that, or a friend or a friend from church that you just never get to really see, and kind of give them just that moment to be seen.
Yeah. And you know what? It's kind of, I think some people don't like this thought because it makes them feel like the same way people don't get uncomfortable when they receive compliments sometimes. I think sometimes people don't like to think that there are people out there that probably look up to them.
Right.
Right? It kind of feels like, I don't deserve that. Or like, why would anyone look up to me?
Right.
But yeah, we probably all have some cousins or nieces and nephews or younger siblings.
Yeah.
Or, you know, friends in your ward or whatever, that you're like, if I really thought about it, they probably do look up to me a little bit.
Right.
And, dude, I read, this is one of my favorite quotes. I'm going to say it wrong, but this guy, I think it was Samuel Johnson. This is like an old, like, statesman. But he wrote in his journal one day, and then, like, years later, his son wrote in his journal that same day. And so they compared them, right? Yeah. And they were like, his son was like 7 or 8. Right. Yeah. Right. And he just went fishing with his son. Yeah. And so I don't remember his son's name, but the dad's entry was like, went fishing with Kyle this morning, complete waste of an afternoon. You're right. Or something like that. And Kyle wrote, went fishing with Dad, best day ever. Right. You know, and you know, maybe Kyle was being annoying and was like crying or something, and so the dad's like, dude, what a horrible day. Like, it's raining, we didn't catch any fish. Right. But to the son, he's just like, yeah, I was just out there with my dad. Yeah. You know, and I love to think that, like, your worst day could be somebody's best day. Yeah. And a lot of the times it's those people who are younger than us, for whatever reason. They just look up to you. Mm-hmm. So just think, if you're having a hard time thinking of someone, think of someone like that. Yeah. You know, someone who's younger who might look up to you. Yeah. I love that. We've been going for a while. Dope. Do you have like anything you kind of want to, after like everything we've been talking about, any messages or something that you want to kind of go over and talk about more, or maybe if you want to shout out your books or your podcast more, or your socials? No, you'll find me. You'll find my stuff if you want to. You'll tag me. People will find me if they want to. Let's see. One last little message. One thing I've been thinking about a lot lately that is really hard, but I think it is really important. I think a lot of us, you know, we strive to love people unconditionally, right? We strive to give people grace and to give people the opportunity to repent. Mm-hmm. We try to forgive people. But I think sometimes we do a horrible job of doing that with ourselves. Right. With loving ourselves unconditionally. Yeah. Right? It's like, it's one thing for me to love my mom unconditionally. Like, that's easy. Right. You know, she birthed me. She's amazing. Yeah. She's beautiful. She's endlessly patient. She's perfect. Right. Right? It's not to love. Yeah. She's easy to love unconditionally. There's nothing she can do. But for me, man, I don't give myself that same grace. Right. You know, like you said, I do something a little foolish. I go put my dunce hat on and sit in the corner and cry. Yeah. You know, and I tell myself, you're such an idiot. Yeah. You know, even little things. I'll forget to pay a ticket or something. Yeah, right. And I'm like, dude, you're such an idiot. Right. Whereas, like, if a close friend was like, bro, I freaking forgot to pay this ticket, I'd be like, oh, bro, you're fine. Let's get it. You know? Yeah. You know? Yeah. But when I'm talking to myself, I'm like, no, trust me, you're an idiot. Yeah. You know? And I'm trying to do better at that. You know, I don't have the worst self-talk out there. I know a lot of people struggle with it. Yeah. But there's lots of moments throughout the day where you can kind of beat yourself up a little bit. And I wish we could give ourselves a little more grace and be like, you know what? I did mess up a bunch today, but I did my best. Yeah. You know? Or like, yeah, this girl told me she doesn't love me, but I freaking loved her,
Yeah.
and I did all I could, and I tried to make her love me, and it didn't work. So yeah, I'm gonna give myself some grace.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give myself a break.
I like that.
Yeah.
I really like that. A thing that I really like about trying to help myself do more of that is from this guy. His name is Charlie Rocket. Maybe you've heard of him, but he was like a Nike athlete and a producer back in the day. But he was on a podcast that I really enjoyed where he talked about the power of like thinking of everything as like a winning streak. And it for me is kind of like a big like self-talk motivational thing for myself. I like to do a lot, where in every single instance in life I look for the good. And I look for the winning streaks.
Yeah.
So like I'm driving my car, light turns green as I'm driving. I don't have to stop.
Yeah.
Winning streak.
Yeah, like I'm absolutely destroying this day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And just like looking for those moments more often.
Yeah, the silver linings.
Yeah, like you can find them more often, and by calling them out loud as they come and happen, it does help a lot.
Yeah, and that's gratitude.
It's gratitude. Yeah, it really is just gratitude, which I love.
Yeah.
Taylor, I appreciate you.
Of course, my guy.
Honestly, thank you so much.
Yeah,
for
dude,
coming
this was
on.
fun, man.
Do you feel oblivious still?
Bro, I don't know about anything. Yeah, I feel like I'm floating into oblivion.
Thank you for tuning in to We're Oblivious. We hope you found this episode as enlightening and entertaining as we did. If you enjoyed what you heard, please consider subscribing, rating, and leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback and support helps us to get our episodes to more people like you. Don't forget to visit our website at we'reoblivious.com. That's all one word, we'reoblivious.com, to access show notes, additional resources, and join our community. You can also follow us on social media, or I guess you can follow me on social media or on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Reuben Bradshaw. That's ReubenBradshaww. That's 2 W's. To stay updated on upcoming episodes and more behind the scenes content. We love hearing from our listeners, so if you have any questions, topic suggestions, or people you think we should have on, or just want to say hello, please drop us a message at Reuben@we'reoblivious.com. Your input drives the direction of our show. As we wrap up today, remember your support keeps us going, and we can't wait to share more insightful and inspiring content and dialogue with you next time. Until then, thanks for being part of the We're Oblivious community. See you in the next episode.